Longest 10 seconds of our lives. Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us for the regularly scheduled monthly Downtown Development Authority meeting on May 20th, 2020, lockdown edition. Madam Secretary, the roll, please.
Bob Bloomingdale. There he is. Christian Hauser.
Present.
Paul Haig. Chris Johnson.
Here.
Jason Rewald. Lisa Germani Williams.
Here.
Candace Van Slembrook.
Here.
Marilyn Trent. Tony LaPuma.
Here.
Mayor Bickton.
Here.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Present.
Ann Peterson.
And Marilyn just checked in.
Here.
I'm sorry.
Here.
Oh, okay. Don Sinkwitz.
Yeah.
Christy Ferraro.
Here.
Christy, you're here? Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah.
There is a quorum.
And Marilyn just flew in. Marilyn just flew in. Her butterflies, her wings weren't flapping as hard as everybody else's to get here at 7 o'clock. So she's good though. Thank you everybody for making time. Right. So this is our regularly scheduled Downtown Development Authority meeting. I know that we have some folks here from PSD. For those that don't know, we have been sort of trying to keep a weekly cadence on every Monday night at this time to get together and kind of stay in front of things as they develop with respect to reopening the downtown. So want to thank our PSD friends for joining us. I see Kevin's here and a few others, so thanks a ton, appreciate it. Oh, yep, there we go. So this meeting will be more a traditional DDA agenda-driven meeting. So if it feels a little bit different than the last couple we've had, that's why. But there's more than ample opportunity for everybody to sort of pitch in and talk. So as usual in my meetings, it's an unorganized free-for-all. So everybody feel free to have at it. I'll try and keep some guardrails between us. I do want to tell you that I am actually up north at my farm just west of Mount Pleasant, and I'm tethered to my iPhone with 2 bars. So I'm not promising anything. If all of a sudden I disappear, it's not from lack of interest or dedication to the city of Rochester. It has to do with the lack of cell towers in the middle of farm fields. So with that, let's get started. I want to go ahead and talk about the approval of the meeting minutes. We had 4 meetings. A special meeting on February 13th, 2020, regular meeting on February 19th, 2020, regular meeting on April 15th, 2020, and special meeting on May 6th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve or any questions?
I make a motion to approve.
second.
Motion by Trent, second. Second by Candace Van Slembrook. Sorry, Tony, you came in afterwards. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion. Okay. Motion carries. These Zoom meetings are my favorite. When we get back to normal, this is what I'm going to miss the most. Is this? This is just so much fun. Jason Rewald is not with us tonight because he's about to become a father. So keep Jason and his wife in your prayers. Yeah. So he's texted Christy and I earlier and said, yeah, it's time. So.
Awesome.
So yeah, so it's good, and those guys have been sort of, really. It's the first. I mean, everybody. After you get past your first, it's not as glorious, but the first one's always the funnest. So keep those guys in your thoughts and prayers. So at this time, we generally entertain audience comments in the meeting. If there's anybody in the PSD that wants to talk, or anybody that wants to talk about anything that's not on the agenda, that's not a regular DDA member. Feel free to do so at this time. Otherwise, we can just go ahead and get through the meeting, and then you guys will have ample opportunity to participate in the agenda items. So does anybody have any burning questions not on the agenda tonight?
Should we point out that Christian's on his back patio?
I am.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Yes.
Yeah.
So it would be better.
I want to get outside.
It'd be better if you had his. It'd be better if you had a cigar going and a glass of Cabernet, but
Yeah.
Can I give you guys the option that I'm about to eat dinner during this?
Yeah.
that's good.
On or off a video, it's your guys' call, but seriously, I haven't eaten all day. I'm about to eat.
Yeah, no.
Chow down,
Get
man.
after it. Get after it. Just hit the mute. That's all we ask.
Delicious.
Right, perfect. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get after that. We're going to go to liaison reports. Our first up is City Council, Councilperson Peterson. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hi, well, I don't have my notes with me, but I do want to say that we have had our last meeting. Let me remember what it was, because mine and yours are flowing together now.
Budget.
So,
Budget.
yes, the budget was approved and unanimously. It was a bare bones budget though, so if things improve, may be seeing amendments, I'm sure, in the future. And we also extended the hazard pay for our frontline workers. And I wanted to say, I don't have, darn it, I didn't bring my notes. So I think most importantly is we passed the budget. So
That's the most
if there's
important
anything, I'll chime
always,
in.
right?
Anything else I'll chime in later. Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Chamber of Commerce, Marilyn Trent.
Yes, Chamber has obviously been remote for a while, and they're continuing to do their weekly Wednesday updates, and which Christy and Stuart have participated and have given their input, and it's been very helpful, along with the other legislators from the state and federal level. They've also have had to cut back, as one would know, but they have increased their in services, trying to help business owners as much as they can through educational webinars, and also business owners answering any questions and being there for them. On the golf, they also usually have a golf outing in June. They have changed that to August. I think it's August 17th, but I don't know if they nailed that down. They're going to have the Sunrise Pinnacle Award. There's some feedback, I think, but is it okay? Okay, I'm still heard. So they're going to have the Sunrise Pinnacle Awards. They're not sure where, and they're trying to figure out how to do that. If we don't know about social distancing and everything else, knowing that they won't be doing buffets and all the details and things like that I know everybody is working through. But they're hanging in there, and they're all doing a really good job, and I'm really proud of them. I'm not their mom, but I'm still very proud. I'm as a being on their board.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
I mean, when you say you're proud of people, it's like, and I'm so proud of them. It's not, it's a,
All right. Got it.
yeah. So that was it.
Yeah, no, it's a tough time.
More to
I
be,
appreciate
more
it.
to
I
come.
appreciate everything.
Of course, membership is down. Membership is down, but they have gained new members, a few new members, so those are quite good. So that's it. Am I still on?
Cool. Thank you so much for that update. Appreciate it. Chamber, I'll see here, Historical Commission, Don Sienkiewicz.
Yes, as we've all been impacted for the health and safety concerns, and the same thing with the Historical Commission activities. The Founders Day celebration that was to be held on March 15th obviously was canceled. However, we were able to distribute approximately 1,100 Founders Day coloring books to the Rochester community schools and some of the surrounding areas before the shutdown. The Greater Rochester Heritage Day, which was to be held last weekend, in true to fashion, one day and one rainy day, that in the city park, that was also canceled. Along with that cancellation, there was the Lions Club Car Show, which would have been held at the same time, but again was canceled. And as some of you already know, the Rochester Rock and Rod Show, which the Lions Clubs helped support, has also been canceled. And from my understanding, and I'm not sure how this is going to work, they're talking about canceling the Dream Cruise. So that should be interesting to see how many people still show up to that. But unfortunately, that's all I have for right now from the Historical Commission.
Got it. A lot of cancellations. It's so unfortunate. But thank you for that report. It's not surprising. I will say that my phone is down to 1 bar, so I'm apologizing in advance for that. So Principal Shopping District, Candace Fitzlembrock.
Yeah, our last meeting. So by the way, this is my first time as a liaison for the PSD. But the scheduled meeting that we had, we last all attended was March 10th. And we had a lot of great discussions and about events that could be coming up in the area. But unfortunately, a lot of things have kind of put on the back burner. But at this point, they had a discussion and also approved the retiree health care plan policy for the ladies here on the call. And that's really going to this to report, because we've kind of all been on meetings together for the past few weeks and have been having unrecorded meetings and unscheduled meetings due to the crisis that we are facing.
If I can
Very
butt in,
true.
I had a
Thank you for that update. Oh, please. Yes,
when
please
you
go ahead.
called that off, a brief panic moment when you called that off. I had a mouthful of food and you said PSD, and I was like, is he calling on me to give an update? So, you know, just a little
Yeah,
humor.
no.
Thanks, Candace.
No, it's all fine. You're fine. No worries. That's hilarious. All right. So thank you to all of our liaisons for keeping us up to date as to what's going on. As Candace said, we've been meeting on a regular basis anyway between PSD and DDA. So thank you from me personally for all the PSD folks for your time, energy, effort, and life force in this, but then also sort of, you know, making time for us every Wednesday to kind of just stay together and make sure we're singing from the same song sheet. So I really appreciate that. General business agenda items, 6A, new historic sign partnership opportunity with Pat McKay. Mr. McKay, take it away.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. And hello to everyone. I'm not sure I know everyone, but I've been the manager at the Rochester Hills Museum for a number of years. And we've come up with this idea where we have thousands of archival images of downtown Rochester. And we've been looking for ways of getting those in everybody's hands so they can appreciate how buildings have changed and how they have not changed. And it started with an image I found on Mackinac Island where they have signs and they put them in exactly the spot where the picture archivally was taken. And that's all they do is just put the year that the archival image, and you can compare it to what's there today. So we did a prototype with Christy and actually try to figure out how to put it exactly in the same spot in downtown Rochester, just to try to get some appreciation for some of the history that we have downtown. And what we're looking for is a way to attach it to the light poles where we don't damage the light poles. We didn't want to drill into it, so we found brackets that can just be tightened around, just kind of grip onto the pole. We're a little nervous about wind and having the signs twist a little bit. We wanted to make sure they're high enough so they wouldn't ever hit anybody in the corner of the eye or on their head or anything like that. So Christy and I went out and sampled one, and it was an image taken right down by the whole bakery, 1935 image of looking down Main Street when there was a major carnival going on Main Street. So I don't know if Christy, I think she shared some of those images with you. We have a chance to do them through the Rochester Hills as a sign shop. So it's similar to what the Rochester sign shop does. And I haven't compared prices to see if Mo can do it at a cheaper price. For the city, it's about $50 for the sign, about $3 for the bracket. So it's about $55 per sign. Installation would be free because I would do it as part of called an exhibit installation. Christy said she would be my lovely assistant, so I'm happy to do that. But we have a prototype. The title on it right now says "Back in the Day," but it could be anything you want it. It could be anything you want it to be. On the lower part of it, we have a QR code, and if you scan that with your phone, in fact, it actually works right now. It would take you to the archival image and to the archival repository where that picture is located. We could do the same thing with logos for like the DDA. If Christy wanted us to somehow put a code there, we could do it. So if guests scanned it, it would go maybe to the promotions page or something, or the DDA, or wherever you want it to go. Or it could be just the way you have it. This is just simply a mock-up at this point. I think we identified about 10 different signs, and it's one of those where it could grow or not grow, as you like. We were interested in trying to do some of them and get them started, and maybe do a couple around town and see how everyone appreciates them. And we're willing to, the museum is willing to help do the layout and get them made and install them if you're interested in having them in downtown Rochester. So happy to answer any questions or see if there's anything we can do to make this happen.
Okay.
Thanks, Pat. That's super fun. I always really enjoy, even on the historic commission Facebook pages and whatnot, when they have back in the day pictures. It's just, sort of really puts everything in perspective with respect to our community. So I appreciate that, and I know Christy has been. We've talked about this a little bit on and off. The hose clamps, great solution. Really appreciate that. That's great. I'll go ahead and open it up to anybody that wants to talk about this agenda item. Is there any questions?
No, I could, whoever, my hand's up.
Marilyn, go, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, it kind of goes in and out because of the background. 2 fingers, 1, it looks like I'm missing fingers. No, I think it's a great idea. You'd just be surprised how many people it draws them in, and it really engages people more with the town. It leaves people with a richer experience. I'm being a history minor myself. It just it really is. I think it's a wonderful idea. I really do.
I agree with that. Anybody else? Kevin, please.
So I have a question, because our building has been restored within the past year. Most of you guys know where we're at. We're in the Molnar's old building. And the number one question I get when I'm inside there is, how old are these walls? How old is the brick? How old this? How old is that? It's amazing how much people engage on the history of our building, which I think is really, really cool, and why I love our space so much. So first and foremost, I think this is a really, really, really cool idea. But I think that there's even some better legs on this idea with some of the business owners being able to talk with the sports commission and see if, for example, if you had pictures of my building before, what it looked like 100 years ago, I would love to have something even hanging inside my doorway that somebody could come take a look at of what my building looked like literally 100 years ago. So there may be some exciting stuff we can do.
Yeah, send me. Let's communicate so you can send me a note on what your address is, and then we'll go through our archive photographs, and then our newspapers are digitized and are scannable PDF documents going back to 1872. So if I can start tracking down who some of the owners are, we can start tracking down all the newspaper articles where owners of your building have been mentioned from 1872 to 1952. So we have some phenomenal resources at the museum, and I have a person who's a whiz bang. So if you can send me an email, we'll try to track some things down for your building.
Perfect. I think that's an awesome idea. And anybody else? So I guess from a next steps perspective, I'm sorry, Candace, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. I would like to see this kind of something even more interactive for people. Could it be something where we could add a scanned QR code onto these images that we're going to be placing around town to make them go to? Sorry, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, it's on there.
I totally missed it. Okay, awesome, cool. Sorry.
Well, good idea. We like it.
Yeah, great idea.
That's awesome.
And you know what? And we can do them based on different topics. Like right now, it's it's the anniversary of women's suffrage, which was 100 years ago. So at some point we could put one. Like right now, Rochester's first postmaster was a postmistress at Penny Black. So we could do a story there, talk about that building being built during by the Works Progress Administration, which is a really neat story. But then talk about a woman who ran the post office, which was a little unusual throughout Michigan, that we had a woman running the post office. So so we could do it seasonally, or even annually, like when the bicentennial was here, or these major reconstruction projects. We could focus on these signs based on what's going on and what's coming up in Rochester. So it'd be fun to change them as needed.
I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Anybody else? So not seeing any other questions or hands raised. I apologize. I'm scanning the Brady Bunch boxes here. I don't see anybody with their hands up. So I love it. $50 a copy is, you know, in the grand scheme of things is, you know, not a ton of cash. So I guess I would probably want to turn this over to somebody. Christy, I don't know if there's anybody that you would want to aim this towards, but come up with a, I love Kevin's idea of, you know, having things specific to the different buildings. But just, you know, figure, I know we got a lot on our plate right now but I just think in the grand scheme of things of having everybody, because we're talking about bringing people into town and the outdoors environment, this is just going to add to the ambiance more and more of what we're trying to do. So for me, it's no brainer. I would just say that, you know, put together a plan and we're getting together every week. So you know, we can go ahead and approve pretty much anything that we need to approve whenever we need it, unless there was some other action you needed to do tonight on it.
I think as long as we have your blessing, then Pat and I can start working together on these. Pat had already sent a few photos over, but I know that the archives have a lot more. And with this direction, maybe we could come back with a selection of photos for everybody that we would recommend. And then everybody could kind of chime in if they like the direction we're going.
Got it.
Does that work?
And if Hills has their logo
on
on it, we make sure, I'm sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Oh, no, you could finish. I just wanted to add, and I think Pat may know this already as well, but the Rochester Avon Historical Society did start the QR codes a long time ago. And if that was something to lead back for, as everyone was stating, to have the QR code scan and go to other information, it could take you to that site. Also, my other question is, though, real quick, is there a way that these can be sponsored?
I think that's why he could come to us with the idea of thinking that maybe the DDA would sponsor it because it's such a nominal amount of money. And right now I really don't want to ask the businesses for anything.
Oh, no, I get that. Right.
Yeah.
No, I just meant other people in the community if they wanted to for some other ones, maybe in the future.
Sure,
Well, I was going to say if Hills has their logo on it, Mayor Barnett can sponsor them. It'd be great. So.
Okay.
Kidding.
All right.
But no, I think it's a great idea. Just, you know, add it to the, you know, general activities that we're trying to do as we come out, you know, life after COVID-19. I think it's great. Kevin, please go ahead.
We could probably add something into Explorers Club with this as well. It could be a great way to teach some of our youth. Explorers Club is such a fun thing in Rochester. The kids get into it so well. With having these signs around, I think there's some really cool things we could play upon by having them scan the signs and learn a little bit about the history of town.
Yep. Perfect idea. Yeah, love it.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we? Okay. We got. Oh dear God. Sorry, getting a phone call.
Before Pat pops off, I just wanted to mention that Pat has been kind enough to volunteer. He's going to actually do our first window display at the studio for June. So he's going to bring some cool things from the museum.
That's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in that space as well. So Pat, as usual, I mean, you know, if it wasn't for you and a handful of others, you know, keeping us grounded in our history, that I'm super thankful for your efforts, and the Historical Commission, of course, in this regard. Yeah. So thanks a ton, and stay tuned. News at 11.
Yep, I'll work with Christy, and we'll
very good.
Some signs I'll mock up for you.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm going to sign off and let you guys continue on. Right. Thank you. Have a great meeting. Christy, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. 6B, Main Street, Oakland County updates. Christy Trevorrow.
So a couple things. One, with the county, I think a lot of you are aware of the Oakland County small business grants that they were working on. They had offered a second round. They started notifying businesses today, and I know that dozens of our businesses were included in that list. So that's pretty great news. So I think in total, over 80 businesses will be receiving grants from the county. They're ranging anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000. So I think that's good money coming in, and those are grants, not loans. So all of those notifications were going this week. One of the other things that the county is working on was our crowdfunding campaign, which I think I mentioned last time. That is launched. I didn't check it recently, but I think we're over 1,500 already. So they will match dollar for dollar anything that we raise up to $4,000. So I'll send the link out again to everybody. So if you guys can share it on your social, I would appreciate it. And all the giving levels come with Love Local Rochester swag, including mugs, water bottles, and tote bags. And then last but certainly not least, I finally got the call today. You may have heard that the county had $1.6 million that they had put into creating reopen kits. That these kits they're going to furnish to every business in Oakland County, and they will include gloves, disposable masks, hand sanitizer, some social distancing graphics, some CDC guidebooks on how to operate your business, things like that. So the way that it works is that the cities with DDAs get priority. So we're getting our shipment next week. So when I say shipment, that means that they are dropping 400 15 by 21 totes on pallets here with me. So it's going to be amazing. So I already cleared it with Blaine that we might be able to borrow some DPW people to help us load. It's a good thing that we have the studio, because we're going to put some of them in the basement, and then we'll have the rest of them to be able to be picked up by the businesses from the studio. So it's going to be exciting, but they are all coming, and we'll be sending out a form to all the businesses to sign up to get their kit, because the county would like us to track who picks up their kits, the type of business, things like that. And they have them sized for 10 employees or less, 11 to 25, and 25 and up. So it should be very interesting. So
got it.
Yes.
Well, the good news is we only have one set of stairs.
Well, the good news is we don't. Yeah, this is
well,
the
no,
basement
down,
now.
up. I
So
suppose it
yes.
doesn't matter. Yeah. So, but at least
Yeah.
delivery's coming in the ground level temporarily, so
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, thanks a ton for that update. 6C, inventory of open spaces. So this is coming from our meeting, really last couple of meetings that we've had, our weeklies, but wanted to get a feel for the kinds and types of open spaces that we had available to program and or make available for the summer as we reemerge after the governor lifts the order. So I guess Christy, take it away, and then we'll just kind of let it go where it goes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Don't be worried, it's not like a full-on presentation, but it is going to be something that we can look at a lot of pictures. So I thought that might be easier for everybody. Okay, everybody seeing my screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna take my slideshow. Come on, work with me. There we go. Okay, so of course, you know me in my presentation. So here we go. So programming public spaces. So based on the conversations that we've been having the last several meetings, I broke this up into 3 things. Outdoor dining, which is something I know that we need to tackle tonight. Another one is exactly what this is supposed to be, identifying existing spaces that we have downtown that we might be able to add, enhance, or program. And then last but not least, something that we've been sending a lot of emails back and forth about, parklets. The reason I think Ben really wanted to get this going tonight is because inevitably the next couple of weeks, we're going to start to reopen, and we need to get all of our ducks in a row if we're going to tackle any and or all of these things. So I went around and I did just a visual inventory of things, and I have it broken down into sections. So, and with some little to-dos that go along with them. So starting with expanded outdoor dining, because that I think is something that's on everybody's minds. If someone shares with me one more time, a resident, anyone from the community, about outdoor dining being expanded, it's like, I just want to say, I got it. We're working on it. Give us a second. So, I loved this picture. I know it's not us, but if we could get those cobbled streets, that'd be great. But I mean, outdoor dining, it goes way back, so people love that. But when we were talking about outdoor dining, and we've had conversations with the police chief, with Nick, about what these would need to be, that they have to be something that has defined rail, so it separates from the traffic. It has to have a decking to it, because as the chief pointed out, many of our parking spaces have a slope to them. So we have to have some even things like that. But we want them to have a little bit of continuity. This is another version of something that you could do. The reason we've been talking about outdoor dining, just to catch everybody up, is that, and certainly I'm going to step back if Chris or Tony wants to jump in here, but what we are hearing is that when they do open dining again, that they're going to limit capacity inside the building, and a way to get more capacity for a restaurant is to go outdoor, because other than 6-foot distancing, they're not going to limit that seating. So that's why we're trying to offer this opportunity, because as Chris and Tony have both expressed to me, at 25% occupancy, they just can't make money and it doesn't pay. So I don't know if Chris or Tony want to jump in on this before we go any further.
Yeah, we tried, with strictly carry out, and it's just, you're just spinning your wheels. So I went there the other day and I heard it was gonna be 25%. At 25%, I really have a booth and a half. That's all they can use in the restaurant. At 50%, I have 3 booths and a table I can use. So I kind of separated the deck, which isn't bad. But what I'm doing now is I'm trying to expand the seating outside by the path there where I have all the picnic tables. Because God, it was 25% or even 50%. It's tough. It's tough to make a buck. You're just spinning your wheels. It's a challenge of a lifetime we're going through right now. And Chris has a larger place. I don't understand how it's just going to be a tough deal. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Anything less than what we were doing is going to be hard, and to cut it in half or down by 75% is nuts. So yeah, that's kind of been my focus is how can we increase occupancy, But I think you're on the right track, Christy. I think this would be awesome, spectacular.
And the other thing, Brian from PSD last week had talked about LCC and how restaurants would have to work to get their licenses extended. And there was an opinion I had sent to Ben that Kelly Allen, who works with the city quite often on liquor issues, had sent that liquor control has eased up on that as being more open to those kinds of expansions in light of what's going on right now. I'm just going to hit to my next slide here. So if we did things that we need to talk about, if we're going to do this, and I was thinking, Ben, I'll just kind of run through the deck, which is pretty quick, and then we can circle back. But if we do want to go down the road of outdoor dining in with everything we've talked about, obviously we need to discuss the city approval process, which I did with Nick and the chief this morning, and they can certainly explain where we were with that. We have to establish design guidelines and an application process if we are going to do this, because it would be using the parking spaces that we are getting from the city right now. And then also there had been some discussion about creating a grant program to help the restaurants purchase the furnishings or something that would go along with this. So if we do want to pursue outdoor dining, these are some of the things, in addition to, I'm sure, many more, that we would need to start tackling. We want to do that. So that's one thing that's on our table tonight. The next one is our existing public space opportunities. So I walked around town for an hour this morning. It was beautiful out, by the way, and took some photos. So we do have a lot of places that we can program that we've thought of, and maybe some that we haven't. So I'm going to go ahead and flip through these. Oops, actually that's in a wrong place. I will come back to, oh shoot. How did this all move? Hold on. Okay. That's Parklets. Hold on. I moved stuff and then it's not here. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. So outdoor spaces. This is the deck that Ben's been talking about quite a bit that we could program. It's an easy one way in, one way out. It's nice and big. I think that the chief told me, fire chief, is about 36,000 square feet compared to the farmer's market lot, which is 29,000 square feet. This is where we do.
Just the top, Christy?
Yeah.
Just the top you're talking about?
Yeah, this is just the top. This is just talking about programming the top of this deck for some things. We talked about that. We talked about utilizing the farmer's market because obviously it already has the setups. It has electrical. It has permanent water that we've put in there. It has a lot of different, every space that we have that I'll show you has some kind of thing that we like about it. So there's that. The Vest Pocket Park, the Rochester Lions Park. A lot of people forgot about that, and apparently we need some weed killer. But besides that, it's a really nice space. It has a little amphitheater. It has seating. It's right on the creek. It's an interesting space. We've had a lot of fitness places inquire if they, prior to 6-foot distancing, could they have a space downtown somewhere that they could hold classes, since they would be able to do more capacity outside than they would inside their businesses. So this is a really interesting space. Another space that I've always had my eyeballs on is the railroad bridge. This connects where the Royal Park is over to where the Vest Pocket Park is. It's a really big, nice space, and I think that we could program something interesting up there. Sue Keels from the hotel and I had thrown around some ideas of doing some alfresco dining out there, a different version of farm to table, things like that. Creek runs right through it. It's a gorgeous setting. This is another opportunity because it's a nice rectangular spot. And I don't know if you can see a Locks of Love thing like Paris has started over there. I don't know how we're feeling about that, but it's happening. This is one of the 2 pocket parks that the DDA just put in. This is part of it, and then it also goes down on the side there. This is on the side of Penny Black. And then the Donor Wall Park, which we had a stone fall off, so just ignore that little spot right there. And then that goes, oops, and then there's another little alleyway that goes down, but it's a little more narrow. So we have a lot of existing spaces, and I know Marilyn had talked about maybe programming some things too. So I think that we have a lot of opportunity with what we have. However, if we wanted, let me go back down to my parklets here. If we did want to go down the parklet route, that could be something interesting as well. And this is something that Ben and I were talking about earlier this week, that this is something that we would control. And so if anyone's not familiar, a parklet is basically a park set up in a parking space. There's an International Parking Day that takes place in September. So this is really a thing. But the idea behind it is that it's to provide more outdoor space, because we know that people are going to want to be more outdoors than indoors this summer. And we want to try to accommodate that. I've seen them in towns that have some theming to them, some that are just standard that be put together. Ben went ahead and let me talk to the Community Development Committee to see if they could come up with some theming ideas. And I have some of those that I can share if we decide to go down this road, but just as some examples. This is the parklet system they have in Santa Monica. All of their parklets are the same. They usually take up about 2 to 3 parking spaces. So theirs are kind of the same. In Spokane, they do these that kind of look like a graffiti thing, and each one has a different color palette to it and some different words, different things that go along with. And then the one that I thought was super fun, but don't look at the barriers, because having hay bales and cones really isn't a good barrier for traffic, I'm just saying. But this one that has cornhole, art, I don't know if you can tell, but the art is for everyone. That's a chalkboard, so people could come up, make art on it, we could erase it, and then it could be art again. So parklets are just a way to activate the streets, and we have a lot of places that parklets could go safely. On the side of Orem, for instance, this would be a fun place for a parklet. 4th Street, as you look down, because you figure DeMarco's is on the other side, so if they want to do outdoor dining, we'd leave that. We've got a straight shot here that we could do a parklet along 4th Street very easily. If we wanted to try one on Main, I kept looking at ones that would come right up to the bump out, so we had a little natural barrier there. It might make it feel a little bit safer since it's closer in rather than just being out in the middle of a block. If we want to get fancy, try something with the diagonal spaces rather than the parallel. This is over on Walnut. I had 2 locations. I just think you always think people, Instagram, they want to take their pic with the Masonic behind it as a backdrop. Or of course, yes, I went there, Chapman House. I mean, it's not doing anything else right now. Could be a backdrop for us. So there's a lot of great real estate out there that we could be utilizing, and most parklets take up 1 to 2 parking spaces. So it's not like it's taking out a whole block of parking or anything like that. It's simply just a few little ideas like that. If we did want to go down a parklet route, obviously we have to go through the city approval process, establish design standards, determine number of parklets and what number we wanted and location, and what our budget per parklet is. Those would be all things. And just to give you a taste of what community development came up, they love the art themed one. They wanted a front porch one with swings. Of course, they wanted a big bright one. I might have suggested that. Something with decades, either 70s or 80s, a library theme, a rainbow theme, beach, something that is with the creek and fishing, pets, butterflies, that one was for Maryland, bikes, something going back to the U's and the fact that used to be a farming community. Somebody threw out baseball, a monochromatic theme. So like, for instance, everything would be pink, just everything pink. So that we had a tech-based picnic, and then somebody else suggested a Love Local Rochester theme one. So we had a lot of fun ideas, but I mean, that's what we're doing here, is doing ideas. But I think we've gotten to the point now that we have to start making some decisions, because if we're going to get open, we need to start going. So that's sort of what I got, and I will stop my share, and I will turn it back to Ben.
Great. Yeah, we do need to, Tony, I don't know if we can mute you, but I think you're the one that's feeding back a ton on us. All right, so, okay. So hopefully, and I want to be able to, he can join in. I don't want to cut him off, but I can hear that in the background. I think that's what's feeding back on all of us. On this, yeah, so let's open up the floor to discussion. And just from my perspective, really quick, is that we don't have the traditional government time of months to solve this issue, because we need to be able to stick and move pretty quickly. So just with that as a backdrop, anybody care to chime in on the idea of opening up our city using this as a tool?
I will.
Ann?
Yes, Ben. So I think a lot of these ideas are great. I like you said, we need to do something and we need to get it started. So first, I want to say thanks to Chris Johnson for his list of ideas and thoughts on what the restaurants are actually going through, because that was very helpful. I do think that from our last meeting that we had, I think we should concentrate on only having a couple places that we use as a practice to see how they will work in different settings, and have like not all of them off to the side, but like an example of each one of those. I think we should try to see what would actually work. I think the more that we lay out the parameters and have just things ready to go, I think that will bring back the consumer into the city and let them, feel good about it. So I think all those ideas are great that you had, Christy. So I just want to make sure that the ideas work for the restaurant owners, number one, and then for whatever we have to do for the other businesses separately. And get council's approval, of course, for anything we'd have to do. So but no, I think those are all great ideas, but I do think we need to focus on just a couple areas for starters. Thanks, Ben.
Yep, you got it. Anybody else? Candace, please.
I love all the ideas. I think that they are great. My only point that I didn't love is the bridge near the Royal Park, just because that is a high traffic area for the connection point between both trails. That would be my only concern about using that space, but I thought all the other spaces were great, and I love the parklet ideas, all the different ideas you guys had of themes and styles.
Got it. Mr. Bloomingdale has his plastic hands up there.
I do, yeah.
Excellent.
I would volunteer to build a prototype parklet at cost if that's of interest.
Can I say yes?
It is.
That's of interest.
Yes. That is of great interest, actually. No, so Christy and I were kind of going back and forth over the weekend, and the bases are all going to be roughly the same. It's going to be, each one will stand on its own with respect to design, but we want to make it so it's durable, probably out of Trex or something. Something that can be picked up by a forklift and put in storage, and then hopefully they'll have a life after this, and we'll be able to use them maybe during lagniappe or something. Just sort of trying to think ahead. I don't want this to become a disposable thing for us. I want them to be built so they don't nobody gets hurt and that sort of thing. So but yeah, that'd be great. If you could do that, Bob, we'd appreciate that. Kevin, please.
Kind of going right off of what you said, Ben, I don't think we need to think of these parklets as a COVID-19 problem. I think problem solution. I think we need to look at these as a really cool idea for the city of Rochester down the future. I think parklets are a great idea. Every city I've ever gone to that's had things like this, areas that are like this, that are designated where you can have food, hang out with folks, they're always super, super popular. And it could be something that down the road, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we may look at this and say, hey, my goodness, you want to know a really nice bright spot that came out of this? This parklet idea. Because I think that's something that could really attract a lot of people to this city. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing them right and doing them in a well-constructed manner that allows them to be used for a long period of time. Because again, I think that they could be a really big addition to the city for a long period of time, well past this summer.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that makes 3 of us. Well, I believe we have a quorum. So I think, if we're going to spend the money, I want to do it right. But also, too, I don't want to, we need to get through what we're going through now. And then whatever happens, going forward, obviously we'll support it. And, once things return back to air quote normal, and we decide to do these pending council approval, the DDA could, air quote, rent the spots for the summer, I guess, or whatever. We'll work that out, but just sort of going from there. But Patty, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to feel like I give my 2 cents. First of all, Chris, I thought your email was excellent, representing the restaurants. Although my restaurant isn't in this city, I think what makes my restaurant unique is that it's an experience, because anybody can go anywhere to get food. And I think what Rochester is so unique is that it's all the experiences that you get in Rochester. And I think these parklets will just add to that experience. We're Christy and the team is already doing such great things to get people to this area that I see this as a positive. I mean, it's been devastating for the restaurant industry, and it's just devastating. I don't have any other words but that, but I think this is such a good positive thing that's coming out of it, is these parklets, and then just more events, just making it. I love Rochester. I was born here and I gravitated back, and I think that these are just a great thing to have. So I love it. I'm jealous. I wish my restaurant was here. I've been trying a long time, but I wish it was here. But I think everything that you guys are doing is amazing. So I'm excited as a customer to come.
Patty, we all wish your restaurant was here too, if it's any consolation.
I've been trying, believe me.
Christy, please.
If I could throw to our gentleman in the conference room over at the city, what would the approval process look like to do a prototype parklet somewhere? And I'm suggesting off Main, because then we don't have to get into MDOT, at least for the first little while.
So it's a trick question, because you don't want to hear the answer. As we stand today, there is no such thing as a temporary anything. So we'd have to go outside dining. It's
Parklet.
I don't. It doesn't matter. It's using space other than what it's there for. The planning commission would have to approve it 60 days. So that's not acceptable. I understand that. So we have Attorney Crott looking at what can we do to modify our existing ordinances. I know the mayor waited on this too, about how can we streamline this or find a way to make a city council resolution that would allow for temporary uses without going through what the ordinance says today. So Jeff Krott's working on that. Birmingham did it, and we're going to try to model after them and get you an answer as fast as possible.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's the old saying about government. I'm from the government. I'm here to help, right? So, but we can't. It's important that we not take no for an answer. And the status quo of how we used to do things, take that rule book and throw it in the dumpster, because we just don't have enough time. And I think as things are starting to come to the fore, with MDOT stepping up and relaxing the rules, with the Liquor Control Commission doing that, I get the sense that everybody on all levels of government understands that they have to just throw the rule books out, at least for this summer, to get us back. And then I'm sure we'll have to pay for it later, because we always do. But I think for now, we really need to sort of, not take no for an answer, and do everything we possibly can to expedite things. And I trust that you guys are doing that. And I know you guys know that's where we're at. So I know, does anybody else wanted to chime in on this particular topic?
I will, Ben.
Ann, please.
Yep. And I know I'm only one member of council, but I tend to agree with you very much on this. Yes, a lot of things are in place, but I don't feel that we are asking to do anything that is out of the ordinary, though, right? These are things we've spent like all this time talking about all of this, and right now we're just hearing about it, which is a little disappointing, because we have prefaced everything that the DDA has been trying to do to take care of the business owners from day one, without really hearing that this would be an objection. And I think that, yeah, some of these rules need to be bent somehow, because they're not going to impact the community like we think. And I think we should be able to move quicker to get some of these things done. I do know the Planning Commission meets twice a month. We meet twice a month. I think that we could hold a special meeting if we had to get approval to move this forward. We have to find a way to get this done before the end of the month, so the businesses in town can start doing something with their business based on whatever the state comes down, of course, so I'm in favor of us moving this forward.
Agreed. Nick, So from a prototype standpoint, we got to go through planning and all that nonsense, or can we just do one?
I guess just to be clear, Liquor Control Commission approved this new COVID type licensing for just yesterday. So
right.
That's the purpose of talking to the city attorney today. Was the single purpose of that is how do we break the law? So it's not often that you're going to.
I love it when the cops do that. That's like
you're not often going to get the police chief to do that,
right,
but we have rules and regulations that are in place that
I get it, yeah.
Cover all of these issues. So our goal was, how do we look at that and say we want to cover all of the safeguards that are covered in that ordinance? How do we do that in an administrative fashion and do it so that it makes it safe, that it has the necessary oversight, and we do it without having to have all of these layers of approval and, most importantly, time. So that is the overriding goal of what the people in the room up here are trying to do. And we obviously, try to make the city attorney also look at things from that fashion as well. And I trust that he's going to do that. In order to do, aside from the parklet, but we will have to go to city council for approval to have liquor out on the street. So no matter how we do it, no matter what rules we go to, there will have to be an approval that's granted by the city in order for the LCC, even under this streamlined process, to allow liquor to happen out on the street. So I guess rest assured, we're full steam ahead trying to get that done as quickly as we can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Chief. And, I know everybody on this call is like-minded in terms of wanting to stick and move, but I want to be respectful of, everybody's, the processes that are in place to, safeguard things. And I don't want to minimize that, but the same token is that we need to figure out how to do it faster. I know you guys are on it. And especially since Birmingham already has outdoor dining platforms. And Ann Arbor does. It's not like this is new, even in Michigan. So I guess
we have one at Rojo, so we know the process. But you're asking us to get rid of the process, and it's a law right now by the city. So we understand what we want this too, but we got to make sure we don't go to planner jail because we did something that if someone in town doesn't like it, they're going to ask the city attorney, did they do that legally? And he wants to be able to check all the boxes. So city council, and we're not in a hard place. So we're working on it. We just found out.
I know no good deed goes unpunished, Nick. We know the rules.
I know.
So with respect to the prototype, I'm sorry, Mayor, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think my sense of the city council is that people want to, move forward and expedite whatever we can. I guess my suggestion would be, get some proposals to us, and we'll take a look at them as best we can. And I think there's probably putting stuff in the alleys or something like that. That's probably really easy. So let's get those going, and then the harder ones, we can or we can't. But let's get to stuff that we think we can do right now. Let's get that moving to us, and we'll see what we'll see what we can do. I mean, yeah, we want to expedite this, but stuff's got to be safe, and all that kind of stuff. So that if there's low-hanging fruit that the meeting house can do something, tomorrow, well, let's get that to us so we can take a look at it. Let's not wait for a prototype to be built and that's all fine and stuff like that. But, and by the way, how much is a prototype cost? Anyway.
Haven't gotten that far into it. Still in the idea stage. These platforms would be built, and we have to also get sort of the funding piece too. But it feels to me like we need to get clarity around the rules, and then if a restaurant or any other business wants to take advantage of having an outdoor presence, what are the rules that they need to overcome with respect to occupancy, with respect to fencing, with respect if they have liquor, LCC stuff. What are the things that the city is looking for and or the state? So if that punch list exists, perhaps, and it sounds like Attorney Crot's on it. That's great. That will take care, I think, of the lion's share of it. As it stands right now, we're still, of course, under the stay at home, and rumor has it that she's planning on extending it for another couple of weeks. I guess we'll see on that one. But, we're just not going to have a ton of time to do this. So anything we get in front of council and in front of planning, even if it's the same track, just so we can get in front of it, I think is very, very important. So it sounds like, you guys are, sorry.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just,
please.
Say we're, especially with these Zoom meetings now, it's easy to get a meeting together. It seems like we're meeting all the time. So get us some stuff and, let us do what we can.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
I love that. That's easy, right? So Christy, what do you, I'm sorry, Ann, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, I want everybody on the call to know I was not talking about bypassing all the rules and regulations. It was,
no.
Yeah, that's all. Okay. All right. And thank you,
Yeah,
Mayor.
no, we got it. Yeah, I think we're all aligned. We're I think to a person, we're very respectful of, sort of things exist for a reason. And to Nick's point, there's always going to be somebody that's going to be irritated and want to cause trouble. So we just need to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's, but we need to do it in a, expedited fashion. So I think, Christy, from next steps on this one, well, go ahead. You were going to say
I have a few thoughts. So obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but we already have, for regular outdoor dining, we have guidelines of how they have to secure the space, all those kinds of things. So we could lift that. And then, because I think really what we're talking about is changing the process. We're not trying to change the guidelines necessarily of what they have to do, because that would still remain. Right, John? Right, Steve?
Correct. Yeah, the goal would be to take basically that process and make sure that we do most of that administratively with city council oversight. So taking the situation that could take months down to, maybe a month or weeks, depending on how the cycles work. We already know what the parameters are from a standpoint of, they have to be 25 feet from the entrance to the location in the liquor establishment. I would think from a practical standpoint, we would never want to extend them beyond the surface area of the restaurant itself, so we're not encroaching on someone else's open space. We'd have to make sure that we have enough room, for a safety distance so that there's protection. The elevated platform helps so that, again, it provides some safety so that if SUV is parked in front of the platform, you can still see that there's something there. And it also provides an attachment for the railing so we're not going into the street and that sort of thing. So I think we know how to do this. We went through that exercise with Rojo and certainly watching our neighbors do it. We just have to figure out how to create an emergency exception, if you will, to allow this to happen, given the parameters that the Liquor Control Commission has had to give us this kind of a one-time shot at circumventing their rules, if you will, and allow this to happen through the end of the year.
Because I guess, Ben, where I'm going is that if I can work with the chief and Nick on, defining the actual existing guidelines that we know that we'd have to adhere to, and then as Nick said, Attorney Crot is already aware of our what I assumed was going to be our request after we talked tonight. I kind of let the cat out of the bag and told him what we were thinking. So I think he's already working on a way to allow council to make these kinds of decisions. So maybe we go forward to try to get on the city council agenda for next Tuesday, if that's possible, for us to be able to get there and just say, on behalf of the restaurant, we are looking for this. Because I think what we're looking for in the short term is, will you change the process? Will you do whatever it is that Crot comes up with? And if the answer is yes, then we go back and we work with the different restaurants rather than having a restaurant come up there and try and figure it out we take the lead, figure it out for them of how this is the process works, and then we can lay it out to the restaurants. If you want to do this, the city is going to change their process for this. Here's all the guidelines you have to do. And then we at DDA also have to decide if the council looks on this favorably, if we can get it done expeditiously, and there's restaurants interested, if we do want to circle back to our discussion last week about offering grant dollars to restaurants to purchase the furnishings or the materials to build these things.
Yep. Chief brought up the administrative treatment of this. It feels like the solution from an expedited fashion, because typically, if an outdoor dining request, it goes in the council agenda, and each individual restaurant has to go before council, and there's just not enough time to do that. So perhaps the answer is treating this administratively, like the chief just suggested, where council agrees to what the parameters are that it needs to be happy with, and as long as the different restaurants meet that criteria, they're automatically approved, and we're not having to kind of like the way that Nick does the signs right now. So maybe that's the direction. When I was thinking about this as far as connecting Nexus, and this is probably what Attorney Kratz thinking of, but in connecting Nexus to the restaurant and the parking spot so it can count towards occupancy, we would do a lease of the space for $1. I mean, something goofy, but they would provide an insurance certificate, and that way it's at least space, and that would add to their square footage available. So just a thought. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on television, but I'm just trying to create that connection to try and help out. So it feels like let's try and get on the next council agenda if we can. You guys have a meeting, I think, next Monday, right? So
Next Tuesday.
Oh, next Tuesday. Okay, got it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're all going to be
holiday.
Yeah. So all right. So next Tuesday. It feels like, Christy, let's try and maybe you and Nick can kind of brainstorm in chief of what a blanket criteria as it stands now, knowing that the rules are probably going to change 8 times between now and the time Governor Whitmer lets us all out of jail. But what it would take if a requesting restaurant meets these criteria, they're automatically approved. There's no need to go before council or planning. So I don't know what that looks like, but just throwing it out there, that would be the way to do it administratively.
Mayor, do you think that we have an opportunity to get on Tuesday's agenda? Do you have a full agenda?
Actually, Blaine and I are talking about the agenda tomorrow, so we don't even have an agenda yet. So you could probably get on it if we'll
put us on. We're ready to go. We'll be ready.
I'll use all my pull for the DDA to.
Excellent. Appreciate it.
Perfect.
As I said, I'm for it, but we got to see what happens, and of course,
the devil's in the details. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get on the agenda.
Okay.
Right,
thank
cool.
you.
Awesome.
The meetings don't go as long as they used to. And
it's because you're the mayor, Stuart. I know better now, right? Anybody else care to chime in on the subject? I mean, we're trying to rewire a 747 at 40,000 feet, right? So I get that, and as long as we have flexibility and people understanding that we want to be respectful of the process, but also too, we are asking for. I don't want to be in the position where I'm asking for forgiveness rather than permission, but I'd like to have everybody sort of aligned so that we're not having to do typical government stuff to get this done. So I'm looking forward to next Tuesday, and I appreciate you getting us on, Mr. Mayor. That's awesome. With that,
me again.
I'm sorry, Christy, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Were you going to move on to Parklets or?
I was. Well, yeah. So wanted to get to the outdoor furnishings because.
Okay, very good. Okay, as long as we're getting because I want to know about Parklets because I'm assuming it would be a similar process. So I don't know if we can lump those 2 questions together so that way we don't have to go a second time. I'm thinking if it would be, Steve, I'm assuming that we'd have to have barriers. We'd have to have all the same kind of things that outdoor dining would. We just don't have the thing about liquor and all that good stuff.
And it's city property, so.
Yeah, the premise would be the same. So that the only difference would be the authorization of liquor, but the use of the space and the safety and how it's laid out, would be the same. It's just.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we can get in front of council, we try to do a BOGO.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So people sitting in the parklets with 40s and brown paper bags will be frowned upon. So we will.
I didn't have a beer themed one, but I could write that down.
Right. Mills might want to jump in on that one. Okay, so 6D is sort of related. So independent of this, Marilyn Trent had been putting together some ideas even before this happened with respect to furnishing and creating some sense of place in the vacant outdoor spaces. And she had walked me through her presentation deck about a month ago or so. And then as you know, our discussions have matured here, it was readily apparent to me that the work that she had been doing is going to dovetail nicely into this. So I just wanted to put a spot on the agenda for Marilyn to talk about this and kind of share what she's been working on. And I think you'll see quickly that the two 6C and 6D are both totally interrelated. So Marilyn?
Yep. Hey, I'll just share my screen. Yeah, I'd like to start this by saying that I was just at my office the other day and I am on 2nd Street and there's a stone ledge and there was a couple just eating their lunch on a stone ledge, which kind of falls into what Christy was showing, activating some other spaces so that people will, you know, stay downtown and they won't have to go very far. So that will help Tony and Chris possibly sell more without having to take up dining space that they have next to in their parklet or in their, you know, in the restaurant where they could say, hey, if you want to take your, you know, there's other spots around town that are, you know, comfortable and we can give you a to-go, we'll give you a carry out. So having said that, this is what we put together. It's food for thought. It does not, I don't want anybody thinking, oh my God, do we have to buy this table? I don't like yellow. Why is that mural this looking like this way? This is just spitballing. And I thank you for letting me present because I have been staring at this location, which Christy had shown, which is the parking structure on the west side of town, on the west side in between Main Street and Walnut. Here we go. Let me see. Let me get this open. So, okay. All right. So I had to put butterflies in one. All right. Just had to. But however, I wanted to take a look at how could it be affordable? And maybe they're not quite 6 feet apart. This was before COVID-19. But how do you create a space that you want to just maybe calls your name and say, why don't I sit down here, take a break? There's a charging station, a solar charging station over here to the left, which is around $1,200. The tables themselves are basically commercial grade, but I know that there is a, you know, city, you know, commercial furniture. I'm not an expert in that, but I found this. They were around $1,000 each. And then a mural, and no, it's not painted. Our idea would not be to paint it on the wall. Would be have outdoor grade mylar or something that we could put up, and then maybe it's a theme for that year, take it down, and another, you know, theme for the next year. So there's that. So going along with historical, I mean, obviously this isn't, this is not put in very well. We couldn't find what we were looking for. It's for placement only, but you could put a historical mural there, which would go along with what Pat McKay was saying. There's also, if you don't want to put two tables, maybe there's outdoor kind of musical instruments for the toddlers that they can play with while, you know, their mother or the family is sitting over here. The child can go over there and play a bit. And those instruments are around $1,200. So, the area, I was also, you know, you could paint this checkerboard very cheaply and seal it to give it more of a sense of space. Okay, add a little bit of flowers, you know, I couldn't help myself. Did a little color, native plants. There's an area you could put in more of a professional hopscotch artwork. Here's a table. These tables are about $125 each, and they have a little, they are concrete at the top, so they are commercial grade. They can withstand the weather elements. And those could be put next to any of these benches. There's also another idea, and I didn't put this in. You put a table in front of it. Maybe people, instead of staying in the cafes, they could come outside and work outside on their laptops. This is a little closer. This is a little close up of the tables and the native plants. So on the penny black side, oh, there's another thing I forgot to point out. This is the string lights that Christy and others have talked about. I'm not sure what we were attaching those to. I think we were taking artistic liberty, but down here, they obviously can go between the buildings and they can add some light, because I know the walkway in the evening can be a little dark, or start when the sun goes down, to connect the alleyways to Walnut Street. And here's this. Don't have any idea what string lights cost. It doesn't seem like it would be, I mean, Christy being the light expert, I'm sure she might know where to find those. So next to penny black, and we were talking to the general manager there, I was thinking of this table fits right in. Maybe they could put the little gate there and they could serve people out here, and that would be very easy to do. There's also a place you can add some more native plants. And so the area that Christy had shown, there's where we could add a little library box, more tables next to the benches. I had shown these fluorescent solar lights. I mean, not fluorescent, but solar lights. I don't know how much sun it gets. Nick had said that unless we can put them in with concrete, they might get stolen. However, there is another idea of adding a checkerboard table. I'm not giving up on that. And I promise I will play checkers or chess if somebody ever puts one of these tables in. They're very cost efficient. And, you know, and you can stay outdoors and play a game. I'm sure other people have seen them. Being the branded butterfly lady that I am, I also thought that if there was a place we could put some butterfly wings, I've seen this done in other cities, in Nashville, and was one of them that I knew of that is very popular, to kind of, you know, go around the corner of any, you don't have to put them on Main Street, you don't have to overdo it, but, you know, to have some put up, and they don't have to be permanent, but something about the emergence, the optimism, the emergence of the chrysalis of the butterfly as we emerge out of COVID-19, it sort of starts lining up for me. But of course, you know, I'm a little bit self-interested on that. Here's other murals. The tables, the outdoor chess table that I found was $250. The solar lighting, which I think was going to be a little more difficult, and I'm not sure we have enough sun there, but these are just ideas. There's other things I was looking at. There's little tables and chairs for children. The little free libraries, $350. And then there was when I was showing it to Nick, he talked about the cloth of the umbrellas, who's going to open and shut them. There are metal umbrellas to kind of keep the, you know, a little more inviting sometimes if you don't want to sit in the full sun. I looked up other ones just to take a look at cost. Also other types of engagement for young, for young children, or as well as there's a puppet theater, or if you want to show the 50 states and show where they are and discuss them with your children, or maybe adults who might have forgotten where, South Dakota is, or ask them where Minnesota is. There's also other instruments and things for kids to play with, which is this one, which is is $1,800, but is very secure. It's secure and made for being outdoors. And there's this one over here for children to play, I guess, a matching game. Talk to them about that. And I know that Christy had shown these as well. These are other parklet ideas. I know we've been, like, I think it was Kevin who was talking about this. I think that parklets are something that we should have done a long time ago. And I think its time has come. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity, not to just do it this year, but for forever. So that's it.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Yep, for sure. Appreciate it. And as I said, we were, she had began this work as a outcoming from goals and objectives. And so some of it clearly applies to what we're talking about now. So where I think we left it off, Marilyn, was we wanted to get through this first, and then whatever spaces weren't programmed by businesses that wanted to use spaces for the summer, then we would figure out, what we had left over, and then we would address those sort of. But it was good, especially with the Parklets thing. So everything keeps coming back. So was there anybody had any questions or comments on Marilyn's presentation?
Ben, I would just like to add that, Marilyn, thank you very much. Those are all wonderful ideas. I've seen the butterflies as well, and I think that's great. I think all these great ideas deserve to have us put together a plan to find a way in the future to really implement different things in the future. Those musical things they have in Estes Park as well. I've seen all kinds of those where they have a music thing along the pathway. I think there's a lot of things we can do to enhance the whole entire community. And as Kevin stated earlier, these are all great ideas that are just going to change us for the better in the future. So thank you all for such wonderful research and great ideas.
Hear, hear. I'm in the wrong business though. $1,800 for a toy, the spinning things with the colors. Like I want to do that. So I think, let me just real quick, just do a quick. So we're sort of at the end. I wanted to circle back, if I could take privilege of the chair for a second and get back at the, getting back to the mayor's question of how much do these platforms cost. So Bob, I don't know if you've got the time, energy, effort, or life force, but would want to maybe work with Christy and come up with a, from a material standpoint and a general labor standpoint, what it would take to build one that would be, 2 parking spots long, or maybe one. My thought is that we could make them, every parking spot has a specific size, and Nick knows what that is by heart. Make it so they could be added together. So if we would do 2 or 3 or whatever, but so that way we can start putting some meat on the bone for council on Tuesday, because I'm sure that the question's going to come up. So I don't know if you had some time for us on that.
Bob already texted me and asked me how big his spot was. He's probably got an answer already. You have to have a railing stuff.
Nick says a parking spot is 9 by 18. So, I mean, you don't want them any longer than 18 feet. But yes, absolutely. I will work with Christy because it all depends on, the configuration of it, et cetera, et cetera. But we can get some budget range numbers together. Sure.
Good. I appreciate that. Because whether we use that the primary bones of it for a parklet, or whether we use it for a restaurant to air quote rent it, or whatever that takes, it's going to be the same general bones. From there, it just ends up being perfume on it. So, so if you could do that, that'd be great. Oh, incoming. And then also too, just so I can get a feel for it, Christy, I think you've probably already done it, but if we could get a survey from the restaurants and other merchants that would have interest in doing outdoor business. Nice. So just so I get a feel for the scope of what we're looking at. And then I guess sort of in that, I want everybody to know, and if Jason Rayball is here, he point this out, so I can hear him on my shoulder right now, even though he's not here, saying that there's other merchants that are not in the restaurant business that need some assistance too. So we need to be mindful of that as well. But they're the most, restaurants and salons are obviously most impacted by what we're talking about. So sorry.
And with the survey that we did last week, the question on if we had expanded outdoor dining opportunities for a restaurant, would you take advantage of it? And out of the 19 people surveyed, 100% answered yes.
Okay, perfect. That's right. I forgot about that, and I apologize. So, okay, so that tells us what we need to know. So make sure when we go before council on Tuesday, we have that information, so we're not walking in saying, "Oh, there's just one person wants to do it." This is an across the board request, right?
Good question.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, are we talking about doing these all across downtown? So, I mean, we're talking about building, 50?
I don't know. Once it's all going to depend on the money, right? So until I know how much it costs to build one of these things, I can't, you know, if it's going to be, you know, a fortune, then obviously we have to, we don't have a dumpster full of $100 bills out back that we just go ahead and scoop up whenever we need it. So I need to make sure that we're being respectful of the budget and doing, you know, things. But I think to a person, we've all sort of committed that people are going to want to be outside this summer, and that's probably where our best energy, effort, and life force is at to facilitate that for our residents and for our merchants.
And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong with the LCC, the space would have to be adjacent to, for any of the businesses that have liquor licenses that would want to do that, to extend the license, they have to be adjacent to, they can't be down the street. You guys are still on mute.
I think you said it's got to be within
Chief always
25
does that
feet,
to me,
right?
so I'm running the thing now, so I got
I'll
the.
let you run tech.
They have to be within 25 feet. So yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Plus, we have to be mindful of
25 feet of an entrance or of the.
I'm guessing they're going to use the, you know, the center of the, probably the center of the outdoor space, and the front door would be a good measurement.
Yeah, that's how they did it.
Yeah.
Or you have to have a ramp. We did this with Rojo already. If you have to have a ramp to it, now it gets more expensive. Bob knows that. Then you have to have all these different angles, and you waste a lot of space. But they went from the entrance to the door on a straight line, 25 feet.
And we'll get clarity on that for you, Chris. It'll be in the standard package of this is the criteria. So of course, the devil's always in the details. But you know, that's a great question. Oh, I'm sorry, Patty, go ahead. Yeah.
I just have a real quick question. Will the spaces, I'm just trying to think as devil's advocate here, if the spaces, like if you have a great large location like the meeting house, and then you have a small location like, I don't know, Chomp, let's say. So like, would you say, okay, meeting house, you're going to get 2 spaces, but Chomp, you get 1. Like, I just am wondering if anybody's thought of that, because again, restaurants are all struggling. And so the more outdoor space somebody will, you know, the more you can get, the better. And so I was just wondering if anybody thought of that.
I can say that I had, for whatever that's worth. I think that we have a lot of businesses that already have outdoor dining with them, like Chomp and stuff.
Yes.
Got a sick child. Honey, go downstairs. Okay, Mom. Okay, sorry. Eden was coming up to check on me. She hasn't been feeling good today. So what I was thinking is that, you know, some people already have outdoor dining, like Chomp happens to have like an outdoor patio, things like that. It has to be right in front of their business. So like, for instance, something with like Tanya's Victorian Rose, she only has so much. She's only going to be able to get 1 space. That's just the way it is, because that's how her space is laid out. So I think we're going to have to take it on case by case. And it's the same thing, I would assume, Chief, with outdoor dining, that you don't let them just take whatever's in front of them.
I would have to look at what this current city ordinance says for the outdoor dining as to what the length is. There is a rather large LCC requirement, but you know, I think the one concern is being cognizant of being nice to our neighbors. You know, people tend to look at this parking spaces that are in front of their business as kind of theirs, and so I think we just have to be careful that we're being aware that everybody is in this struggling situation, and you know, the more spaces we take up, 2 things happen. Those are less spaces for people to park in when they come and visit downtown, and those on-street spaces are our most valuable and spaces for patrons to use, and also what the effect is on your neighbor if you're using up their parking spaces. So that's why I think we looked at it, at least when we're, you know, talking about this today, in rough estimates of, you know, trying to look at the distance and area adjacent to the restaurant, you know, in keeping with, so we're not getting beyond that point, encroaching on what someone else may perceive to be their spot.
Sorry, I
Valid
didn't mean
point.
to get up. Eden's not feeling
No,
well.
it's
so I
fine.
had to
Yeah,
check
no,
on
it's
her.
Yeah,
it's fine.
you're a
No,
mom.
no good.
Sorry.
All right. First, goes back to no good deed goes unpunished. But you're absolutely right, Chief. And we just need to make sure that we're being fair and equitable. But I'm wondering if there's value, Christy, in sort of reaching out to the non. I want to make sure that there's peace in the kingdom. Because I think everybody's everybody's exhausted from all this, and I think that the comedy, not comedy, but COMITY, is going to be people are going to be really, I think, much more receptive to be good citizens and good partners in this. So let's maybe try and get out in front of that a little bit and see if there's an issue there. But I agree with the chief, and I had said this earlier. We just need to make sure that we're doing this in a fair and equitable manner. So, all right. So let's get after the budget on what these things will cost, so we can be prepared. I don't want to walk into a gunfight with a penknife on Tuesday. So at least to have some numbers, so we know what we're talking about there. And then with respect to us getting an idea of what an administrative approval process might look like. Christy, I think you and Nick can sort of work on that, and then we'll present that on Tuesday. Tuesday is the regular city council meeting for those that haven't, unless that didn't know. And all right, I think we've pretty much beat that one to death, at least for now. And once again, I mean, we're talking about things. The rules are probably going to change. I have no idea what Governor Whitmer is going to do. I'm optimistic that she'll take the same approach that she did with Traverse City on up, with 50% occupancy and 6 foot and masks and that sort of thing. I mean, that's all that we can work with right now until we're told differently. That's sort of where, at least where my head's at, is what we ought to be planning for. So I have run out of things on the agenda to cover. We're an hour and 27 minutes into this venture. So I appreciate everybody's time, energy, effort, and life force. Is there anything else on the agenda, or anything else that not on the agenda that anybody wants to talk about? Christy. Yes.
Hi. Just under reports, I was wondering if Taylor and I met with the two chiefs yesterday, and we had a webinar about farmers market, which will be opening on the 30th. So I wanted to throw it to Taylor to talk about that. And then I just wanted to talk about something we're doing at the studio after that.
Got it. Go.
Yes. So the farmers market will be opening next Saturday, the 30th for the season. As I think we've discussed, markets are deemed essential. So the operations of what the market looks like will be a little different than I think what we've all become accustomed to or familiar with, in the sense that, we're not really able to do a lot of like the promotions, programming, event style things at the market that we're used to. In terms of what we discussed earlier this week, there will be a set of protocols that we've deemed with the vendors, and then what we'll be doing on our side. So doing things like face coverings, monitoring the amount of customers that's in the market. We have additional presence of hand washing stations, and with the vendor side of it, we'll be educating them on some protocol of maybe reformatting their vendor booths, creating some additional spacing within their booths, not product handling and, money handling and so forth. So we'll be working with Chief Cieslik and Cheltenham to kind of monitor and distance our customers. And we'll still be there, with our vendors. So lots of exciting, produce and food product to be purchased, but just a little bit different format than we're used to.
Okay.
Anything else, Christy?
And thanks for that. No, sir. Go ahead.
Did anybody
No, I was just gonna say,
farmers market haircuts? Are they giving haircuts at farmers market?
I didn't hear you. What you said?
Sharpening guy's going to be there. I don't know if that could help you.
Yeah. No, I saw a great little cartoon of a guy with a jacket saying, "Hey, haircuts," and going down the alley, doing haircuts in the alley. No, Taylor, thanks for that. It's it's going to be our first one, and people, people are going to be people, so we're not going to know how it's received until we actually go through it, right? So I think as people have been going to grocery stores and that sort of thing, they're used to seeing the bulletproof glass and, you know, all this other stuff going on with respect to distancing. I'm not thinking that that's what's going to happen with an outdoor type market. So I would be mindful and prepared for people to be not concerned is an issue. I mean, we're going to do everything we possibly can, but there's, no matter how hard we try, there's going to be somebody that feels like it's not going to be enough. So let's try and stay out in front of it, you know, and make sure that we're meeting the minimum criteria that's laid out by the state. So that way we're not getting ourselves into any trouble. But I think it's going to be great. People are just looking forward to getting out of the house and doing that. So.
Yeah, I think thankfully the open air format will be on our side in terms of making people feel comfortable and, you know, kind of distancing a little bit more and able to, you know, enjoy. So.
Yeah, got it. No, makes perfect sense. Thank you, Christy.
So at the studio, I was just going to say, at the studio, I just wanted to add on Thursdays, what we've been doing is from the merchant web chats that we did, the merchants had expressed need for PPE, specifically disposable masks, whether they're for their employees or for customers coming in that did not bring a face covering. They've been having trouble getting their hands on those. We've been helping them with that, and the fire chief helped us get sanitizer. So they're picking those things up. But new this week is we have these. These are vinyl floor decals. They're repositionable, and this is to promote 6-foot distancing. This is an 18-inch. We also have a 12-inch, and so these can be placed on floors in the businesses, and we're selling these at $5 and $10 a piece, which is a really good price. And then people are going to come pick those up from us. So we're trying to do as much as we can to make it easier so they can focus on getting their businesses back, and we can help them with little things like this.
That's great, Christy.
Thanks.
Yep.
We're excited.
Yep. All right. Perfect. Events and marketing, we basically been talking about that, I think, unless there was any so that was farmers market, executive director, financial report for the DDA was part of the packet. Biz dev, I don't know if there's anything other than what we've been talking about, but if anybody wants to chime in, please feel free to.
I think we just met last week right before our meeting on business developments. I think we're good for now. We're meeting next Wednesday again, so we'll probably have an update at our next meeting.
Got it. And then as far as site goes, perhaps the if and when, or for sure if and when the Parklet and whatnot takes off, it's going to go through site. They can sort of be the arms and legs of putting budgets together and preparing all that documentation, I suspect.
Yep.
Okay, cool. At that point, I'm sorry, my page was not wrapping. That's why I thought we were done. I'm like, what happened to the rest of the meeting? So then I found it, so we're good now. Anybody else have any issues to bring up before we bring this happy hour to a close?
Happy hour and a half.
Happy hour and a half, right? Happy hour and 33 minutes. Thank you guys so much for your time, energy, effort, and life force with respect to this. We appreciate it. Fun times. Oh, the mayor he's raising his hand. Mr. Mayor.
I was just waving goodbye to everybody.
Oh, got it.
All
I thought it was the official. I got a quick question. So, all right, so we're good. So next Wednesday, 7 o'clock, we'll continue this cadence. Whoever wants to join us, feel free to. It'll be just a joint PSD DDA, just to kind of check and see how things are going. I suspect at next Wednesday's meeting, we'll be able to debrief you guys what happened at council on Tuesday. So with that, everybody have an awesome holiday weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you on the flip side. Have a great night.
Bye.
Hey guys. Bye bye everyone.
Thanks.
See you guys.